I was called a packy, I was told to fuck off back to my own country.
You fucking packy.
For years, we have been told that racism in football has died out. However, that hasn't been the case. In recent years, there has been a surge of racial incidents reported within the sport at all levels. It follows incidents like the Manchester Derby match earlier this season, in which fans were alleged to be making racist gestures towards the Manchester United players, and England players last year were subject to racist chants in games against Bulgaria and Montenegro. So, what seems to be the problem? Racism is now the biggest issue in football, especially here at the grassroots of the game, where the number of reported incidents has reached record levels. According to Kick It Out, discrimination in both the professional and grassroots football rose significantly in the 2018-19 season, with reports up by 32%.
That same season saw 313 reports of discrimination in the professional game, a rise of 46%. There were 159 reports on social media of discrimination. Again, the most common form of reported incidents was racism. And at the grassroots level of the game, 109 incidents of discrimination were reported. 40% of these reports were from youth football.
Overall incidents, which include social media, discrimination reports increased to 581, a 12% rise from the season before. I'm here at Giles Puma's under-17 training session to see how they're combating racism within the game.
Assistant coach Saeed Ali is an advocate for inclusion and diversity in football. He's part of Lancashire and Manchester FA's advisory board and believes society is to blame.
Would you say it's a problem? Why would you say it's much more worse now? We seem to be hearing more about it now than
I think obviously when you look at it, it's a massive thing now where in society you're getting all these high profile cases. My experience with racism or lack of diversity in football, from when I was younger, look, we were told, I was called a packy, I was told to fuck off back to my own country, I was called a kebab, left, right and centre, you know, all the different types of stereotypes you can cope with an Asian person. You know, you don't know what you're doing, you're playing the wrong game, you're the wrong colour. All these things were said to me.
Is this whilst you were playing?
But this is why I was playing when I was younger.
Yeah.
For me though, personally, you know, I always look at myself and think, what racism in football, it doesn't really exist for me. I don't see it that way.
Yeah.
You know, for me, football is the biggest, you know, breaking of barriers.
Indeed, football is leading the way for breaking racial barriers, but that hasn't always been the case. Back in the 80s, racism in football was a big problem. Black players were regularly abused by people on the terraces. They had to listen to monkey chants and even had bananas thrown at them.
It took years and years of campaigning by lots of high-profile people, including top managers and players, to make people realise that racism in football was unacceptable.
Lenny John Rose, who now has motor neuron disease, played for Blackburn, Hartlepool and Bury in the late 80s and 90s and was a victim of this abuse.
Playing in 1986, 87, so when it was really rife, to be honest. So warming up as a sub, West Ham, Newcastle, quite a lot there. Even had it off other players as well on the pitch, where you might have, I don't know, backed into them, shoved them over, whatever, and they've turned around and just called you whatever straight away. So yeah, had it a few times.
Lenny's experience of racism was shocking. Back in the 80s when he started playing, they never had support from organisations like Kick It Out, which was only formed in 1993.
Kick It Out was founded by Lord Owsley to challenge racism and discrimination in football and was then established as a body to cover all aspects of discrimination in 1997. They now work with football clubs at all levels of the game in the fight against racism and discrimination. And every season on the second weekend of October, football matches at non-league level are dedicated to Kick It Out. But has this been enough?
Do you think Kick It Out as a whole are doing enough?
You know what the thing is that I think that they haven't done previously. Kick it out for what I know, and the FA, for what I know, admit that themselves. They're like, look, hold our hands up. We didn't do enough. Kick it out, I believe at that point, yes, like I said, possibly didn't do enough or admit that they haven't done enough.
It's not just players who are victims of abuse. Referees have been targeted too.
He said to me, "Oh, I'll fucking see you in car park, you fucking packy." So, and that I sent him. I didn't send him off. I just managed the game and then just taken all the players off and then finished.
How did that make you feel at the time?
Not great, really. To be honest, with somebody's calling that, especially at this level of the game and semi-professional football, you don't expect that.
Football clubs and governing bodies such as UEFA have been taking action against racism, with stadium bans for fans found guilty of racial abuse, clubs fined and having to play games behind closed doors.
It's against the law, isn't it? So arrest them, treat them like any other criminal. Ban them from stadiums.
I think it's a lot harder to say than do.
I think that football authorities can close down grounds. I don't think that'll make a difference at all.
FC Porto striker Moussa Marega earlier this season walked off the pitch after being a victim of racial abuse. There have been calls for more players to do so.
It's not right at all, but there are ways and means of dealing with it, and for me, walking off is not the way.
It's clear to see that football has come a long way from its dark days in the 80s, with more anti-racism bodies and campaigns in recent years, but still, football has a long way to go to completely eradicate racism from the sport.